disgusting.
That's why I asked.
Who's driving? It's over 9. What?
Crap car.
Addition.
Use the boots to get it. No.
Huh? What the f?
Hello again, everyone. This is Bionic Slime. I am your online voice for reviews of your choice, and welcome back to BS Reviews. Today, I review a rather risky movie, and when I say risky, I mean because it's based off of a popular video game. Popular video games that have been turned into movies have had this well-known running habit of constantly sucking big balls. With the exception of, say, the Mortal Kombat film, the first one anyway, and the Resident Evil film series, most video game movies have been completely terrible and ripped apart by fans and critics alike, and just given people no hope or any interest to see any other further video games turned into films. Well, hopefully that will change with the film that I will be reviewing today. That is the film Prince of Persia. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is brought to you by Walt Disney Pictures and was directed by Mike Newell, who directed Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. It was written by Boaz Yakin and Doug Miro, based off of the original game created by Jordan Mechner. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal as Dastan, Gemma Arterton as Tamina, Ben Kingsley as Nizam, Alfred Molina as Sheikh Amar, Roland Pickup as King Shahriman, and Richard Coyle as Prince Tuss. The plot of Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Dastan was a young, poor boy who was picked up by King Shahriman, the leader of Persia, who decides to make him a prince along with his two other prince brothers, Garisov and Tuss, the two actually birth-born sons of King Shahriman. They venture off into a country which is ruled by Princess Tamina, fearing that they are hoarding secret weapons in an attempt to overthrow the Persian Empire, or so they are told. When they invade and take over the country, Tamina and Dastan get separated when they discover a strange plot that kills King Shahriman and frames Dastan for the murder. Now he has stolen a sacred weapon and is forced to carry on with Princess Tamina in order to try and clear his name and survive the hordes of enemy soldiers that are trying to kill him, as well as learn the mystical powers of the dagger he has stolen, which gives him the ability to stop time, rewind it at least 1 minute, giving him almost limitless power and the capability to try and change his future and his people's. Review of the plot. When I saw this, it was very different than what I was expecting. You know, if you've seen the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies or the Indiana Jones films, then you got a really good sense of what this movie is like in terms of style. It's a kind of a classic big adventure swashbuckling kind of film series, very reminiscent of the Pirates of the Caribbean films, which was, not surprisingly, produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, who also produced this film. Now, as I said, handling video game films is very tricky because they have a constant record of sucking big ass. But I was really pleasantly surprised to see that even though this movie is still so much overloaded with action, that it manages to make it very enjoyable, and while at times the story can be cliched, it still manages to keep your interest. I mean, it's kind of interesting because there are lots of things in here where you can already see where it's kind of going, and then there are times where you see things going a completely different way that you weren't expecting. For one thing, a lot of people die in this film, especially for a Disney film, even though it is produced under a PG-13 label. I was really surprised that so many people got killed in this film. And even though it does, I said, trip over some cliches in terms of plot lines and certain character developments, it does try some bold moves, particularly towards the end, where they try a very daring move with a concept that is evident throughout the entire film, but you never thought of actually using it until they bring it up in the film. It's kind of a bold move, as I said. It can piss some people off, but I think people who appreciate movies, or at least give them enough chance, will be able to see this move as an interesting technique and not just a cop-out. And I was definitely entertained, I have to say that. What this film lacks in, like, meaty depth to the story, it certainly makes up in the ass loads of action and dedication to video game fans. I mean, there are so many scenes ripped right out of the video game. So if you're worried about this being, you know, faithful in terms of like levels and design, it certainly is very faithful. Review the characters. Many people were pissed when Jake Gyllenhaal was cast as Prince Dastan. Obviously, he's not actually Persian, but let's be honest, there aren't a lot of good, talented physical actors who are Persian who can play this film. And a lot of people were going to be bitchy saying he doesn't fit the part, but I got to say, looking at these pictures, I was shocked the shit out of my system when I saw how big he buffed himself up. I mean, I still remember Jake Gyllenhaal as the creepy-ass kid from Donnie Darko. Here, he's freaking ripped like Hercules Fabio shit. And I was really impressed at how he managed to maintain his character even though he's still doing a lot of action stunts and flipping. I mean, his mainstream films have been hit or miss, where usually his indie productions have been usually spot on all the time. And I admit he's not perfect, but like with this and the movie Brothers, I think his acting is dead on. And I think he really showed the world that he has a lot of variety in terms of what he can do. He can be a badass, he can be an action star, and his smart mouth and his interestingly unique facial features really gave this character more of a personality. Not just the action, but how much fun he's having while he's doing it and taking you guys along for the ride. Of course, it wouldn't work as well without the female lead, Gemma Arterton, who plays Princess Tamina. I have to say, she's probably one of the more cutest and beautiful actresses who's been up and coming in recent films. I really think her chemistry with Jake Gyllenhaal is what made this film truly watchable. I mean, the action's great, but you need something else to latch your eyes onto. These two characters' chemistry and relationship together just makes it so worth it. I mean, it's almost, again, like The Mummy. You got this screwball comedy kind of, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, love you relationship going on, and their banter is so sharp, so witty, so back and forth, so realistic, that you can't help but enjoy watching these characters argue with each other, at the same time dodging swords and killer snakes and stuff. It works really well, and it keeps the characters much more lively without just relying on the action to, take up everything. Ben Kingsley is a talented, excellent, top-notch actor. It doesn't feel like he really went too far out of his character here. I mean, he pretty much acted like he just did what his line said and didn't really try any more extra effort. Like, he didn't go the extra mile, which you kind of want to see in an actor of his quality. Probably the biggest surprise star here has to be Alfred Molina, who was hilarious as Shikamaru. This ostrich farmer bandit guy who just steals the scene every time with his dialogue. And I never thought this guy could be that funny, but he really is. Alfred Molina really surprised me at his humor and his talent for just being a spot-on, funny guy. I was disappointed, though, with the other actors, like the two brothers, like Toby Kebbell and Richard Coyle, who played Garcif and Tuss, and Roland Pickup, who played King Sharman. I mean, they were just all right. They weren't very memorable, not that interesting, so it just really wasn't that impressive for them. I mean, kind of forgettable, which is a shame because we see so much of them in the film. Review of the music and the cinematography. Cinematography is fantastic. I mean, it's amazing how camera work moved in this film without becoming shaky and retarded like it did in The Bourne Supremacy. Really get your camera's worth with this film because there's so many gorgeously shot images with the sands and the desert, and the action sequences are just filmed incredibly. You see everything and you're never missing out on anything, and it gives you a sense of the whole world constantly moving with these actors just as fast as they're living it. It's really cool, really impressive, and it didn't feel like it was cheap or like a B-movie action film or like that. It felt real, constant, and furious, just like how the actors were living it. Music was good, very fitting for this time zone and period. Nothing really to brag about. The ending theme was kind of cool. They played during the credits, but other than that, it was pretty much average music. Flaws about the film. As I said, this movie relies heavily too much on action. It's pretty much a straight-up action movie. Now, me personally, I don't have a problem with lots of action. I find it fun once in a while. But for those of you looking to sink your teeth into something a bit more meatier and thicker in terms of story depth, then you're not going to find it here. I mean, the mystical properties of the dagger are definitely interesting as far as the visuals go, but there really is nothing supremely original in the story. So that's why it's best to just enjoy it as a straight-up action movie. It does trip over its own feet in terms of falling into the same cliches. Some predictabilities with the villains and the romance leads, some not. It's kind of a toss-up, but they are noticeable. And another problem I had, again, I mentioned, is that the other actors, the two princes and the king, were very forgettable. Nothing memorable, nothing unique about them. To wrap up, although video game movies have been getting a bad rap for many, many years, and most of them rightfully so, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time is not one of them. I admit it is suffering from a lot of cliches that trip over its own storyline, which doesn't have that much to it anyway. You got some forgettable characters with the two princes and the king, and they're supposed to be part of the lead, so that's kind of disappointing. And it is a straight-up action movie, but I just couldn't help but enjoy myself. It was fun, fast, furious, and extremely enjoyable. You got excellent leads with Jake Gyllenhaal and Gemma Arterton, who are both funny, good to look at, well acted, and they just made it all the more enjoyable to watch. Ben Kingsley, Alfred Molina, also equally good performances. You got some excellent visuals with the action sequences, even though that's all it pretty much relies on. So I say, give Jake Gyllenhaal and this film a chance like I did, and get yourself a good movie's worth out of your system. Bottom line, I give Prince of Persia: Sands of Time 3 stars out of 5 stars. Well, that's all for now. This has been Bionic Slime for BS Reviews. Thank you all for listening, and goodbye for now.